So heading into 2021, we'd like to get your take on the gold and silver markets. So let's say, you have some clients and they give you $1 billion to invest because they want to invest like Dave. What would you choose? Would you pile on the Tesla shares at 682 or First Majestic? Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics on behalf of Dave Kranzler's weekly silver and gold market update. Dave, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It was nice. You had the week off last week, rest up the fastball, but great to see you back here again. And how's everything going with you today, sir?
Everything's going well. I'd like to wish everyone who's watching this happy holidays, whichever one you celebrate, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, and speaking of things that make me happy, is including today's sponsor, First Majestic Silver, run by Keith Newmeyer, who everyone has seen on the show quite a bit. Dave, Keith was in the book The Big Silver Short along with you. He was the only mining executive in there. Hey, I don't know. I mean, if you think silver is going up, I think First Majestic's a company worth taking a look at. It's one that I like. But also, I also have a lot of respect for Keith speaking up about the manipulation because obviously, in fact, Dave, that's a question I get a lot. I'd love to hear your answer. People wonder why more the mining executives don't talk about that.
It's a good question. I mean, it's something. It's a concept that's been bandied about the gold investing community since I've been doing this. Starting in 2001, and to be honest, I think like the largest mining companies like Newmont and Barrick. I mean, they're kind of part of the elitist faction. They're part of the boys club, and so they're not going to. I mean, look, let's face it, everyone knows this stuff's manipulated. I mean, it's obvious. You'd have to be. I mean, I think even if Helen Keller were alive, she'd know that it's manipulated. And so, I mean, it's a boys club or a boys and girls club, and that they're not. It's just something that they don't talk about. And who knows, there might even be some stiff regulatory consequences if the CEO of Barrick came out and started railing on the manipulation. These large mining companies, they don't really care so much what the price is. I mean, obviously they like it if the price is higher. They're just trying to pump out volume. And all they're trying to do is every quarter beat their earnings by a penny. They're playing the earnings beat game. So the stock jumps and then they sell their shares. Now, that said, what I have noticed over the last many years is that junior mining stock executives, although they don't necessarily come out in public and talk about it, they acknowledge it when you have off the record conversations with them. They definitely are aware of it and much more willing to acknowledge it than guys that run big businesses. I mean, Keith Newmeyer he's a unique guy. He's built the world's best silver company. And, quite frankly, I don't think he really cares what the establishment thinks about him.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite things about him. It's interesting. You see corporate and then big words, big letters, leadership here, which I don't know. I remember we had a leadership class at Wharton, which I don't know, just was not inspiring. Although recently I read Bill Walsh, the former coach of the 49ers, incredible man, and wrote an incredible book on leadership that's really impacted me. And yeah, I guess that's what, or not guess, I'm sure there are times where it wasn't easy for Keith to be the one speaking up about that, especially when he was alone. And it's interesting, Dave, as you know, I have a lot of the different silver mining companies on here, and I find a lot of them are just finding out about it. And Keith is a big part of the reason why. He's a big part of the reason why I found out about it, why I put a book out that other silver mining executives are reading or have read. So anyway, that's again my thoughts on First Majestic and Keith. Appreciate what you said there. And he is in the book, The Big Silver Short, Dave, which
Surprised you didn't make him chapter 1.
well, I mean, obviously Dave Kranzler's chapter 1. I mean, there's you were the first one I thought of, and it was an honor to get that started with you. And Dave, maybe the one question I should have asked there. Yep. And Dave, I see you got some silver. Dave, what would you do if you were given a choice between shares of Tesla? So heading into 2021, we'd like to get your take on the gold and silver markets. So let's say, you have some clients and they give you $1 billion to invest because they want to invest like Dave. Here's Tesla. It's had quite a year, I guess. Coronavirus does not affect Tesla sales, apparently. No shutdown there. So, Dave, would you choose? What would you choose? Would you pile on the Tesla shares at 682 or First Majestic? Let's see if we can get the chart up here. What's the? And again, not licensed financial advice, but Dave, what would you say to someone who might be looking at those two choices?
Yes, that's a silly question.
I mean, because you love Tesla a lot. I don't actually, it was interesting, Dave, here while I was pulling up the Tesla chart. That's my commitment to getting you riled up each week, which I know the fans love. They don't want to hear like gold, silver, let them talk about whatever, but just get Dave feisty.
You really want me to go on a rampage about Tesla, or do you want to talk about something that is going to have durability, sustainability, and can make people a lot of money?
Yeah, well,
starting from this point, obviously, if someone bought Tesla, they really should be sending a Christmas card to Jay Powell and to the chairman of the SEC for their gains in that stock. But Tesla is the most idiotically overvalued company I've ever seen. And at some point, it's going to have a come to Jesus moment, and it won't be pretty for all the retail idiots who have piled into that thing over the last year.
Yeah, well, it'll.
On the other hand,
what if the Fed decides they need some shares on their balance sheet, though?
On the other hand, at some point, gold and silver are going to break the chains of manipulation. And silver, I mean, just think of where First Majestic will be when silver hits 50 again. And then think about where it'll be when it hits 100. I mean, it's making a ton of money. It was making money at $18 silver. So every dollar the price of silver goes up falls right to the bottom line. And they produce a lot of silver.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I like it. I mean, I don't know.
That said,
silver's going to be.
That said, it's not my favorite silver stock for rate of return, but it should be a core holding in a mining stock, in a well-diversified mining stock portfolio.
So when you say that, is that the trade-off do you have a higher probability? So let's say silver goes to 30 or 40 or higher. Yes, you would get a higher return on a junior miner, but you have a higher probability of getting that return with First Majestic. Is that an accurate way of looking at it?
You're just trying to state the capital asset pricing model in a different way.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, Dave, you got to remember,
risk return adjusted model. Is that what you're trying to build here?
I had Keynesian textbooks for most of my life rather than Dave Kranzler's investment research journal, so I'm a little slow. I mean, you can go easy on me, man. Roasting me live on the show. Jeez. Dave, all right.
No, you bring up a good point. If we're wrong about gold and silver and the world decides that it's a barbarous relic and useless as money, then certainly there will be a lot more downside to the junior mining companies, junior mining stocks than there would be to First Majestic. no doubt about that. So
Well, fortunately,
I just think right now, given my outlook for where the sector's going, where gold and silver are going, I think now's the time to torque up the risk in your portfolio with juniors. So, and if I'm right, you'll get a better return than just owning First Majestic.
yeah. So Dave, perhaps
Notice I said if. That's always a big if, right? Marlon
Dave,
Brando
is
in
it time to
Apocalypse
back
Now.
up the truck?
If is the middle word of life. Think about that.
Are you saying it's time to back up the truck? Not legally financial advice, but look at all
I'd
that.
like to thank Morgan Febri because he's the guy. He's not a market guy, and I just told him, look, I need some graphics to spruce up my website, and he just sat down and created that. I thought it was brilliant.
All right, but how about change things up a little bit in 2021? Can we at least get some silver in that truck? I think it would be a more attractive marketing photo. I'll even have my people take care of it for you. I'm gonna write a note.
Okay.
Dave's silver truck.
Yeah, if your people want to modify that so it's bars of gold and silver falling out of the truck than dollar bills, sure.
New Year's present, homie. So let's go back here, though. There's some fun headlines. You know, one of my favorite tricks. It's like whenever there's a day, I'm like, geez, what the frick can I say about silver today that I have not discussed before? I just pull up some of these headlines. They're always great. So in the midst of the greatest pandemic in known history, of course, stock market finishing off at record highs. Nothing to see here. But Dave, interesting. Russell Okung's Bitcoin salary could trigger more pro athletes to invest. Again, perhaps that highlights the investing culture we live in, chasing momentum, buying after something has gone up through a moving average. What do you think happens? Like, is there going to be, what if we inserted, like, let's say silver's at $60 one day? Will we see, because it's interesting here, Bitcoin's at 27,000, new all-time high. And it's like this headline suggesting, well, wealthy people now jumping in. What if we have an effect, or will we have an effect like that in silver, where even after it's gone up, when maybe no one's going to care in the public till $50 or $60 silver, but then could we have an effect like this?
Eventually. I mean, I don't want to get into a debate about Bitcoin, but I mean, did you bring up Russell Okung's name on purpose? I mean, talk about someone who gets overpaid. He's like a Newmont or Barrick mining CEO. He gets overpaid for doing a really mediocre job at his line of work. He was terrible when they brought him into Denver and overpaid him to be an offensive lineman here. To me, it's typical that someone like Okung would be making a public display of chasing after Bitcoin, because I think
Dave, I feel like you're holding back. How do you really feel about the man?
I just told you how I really feel. Look, if you look at the chart of Bitcoin, it looks a lot like Tesla. And I think there's a lot of underlying similarities between the two things as investments. I wouldn't call them as investments. I call them speculative, bubble speculation, I would call them.
Well, it is interesting here, though. Agreed to have roughly $6 million of his salary diverted to mobile payment company Strike to purchase.
It blows my mind that he gets paid more than $6 million. It blows my mind that he gets paid $6 million.
Well, I know you're bitter about your Broncos. Sorry, buddy. Although Dave, I guess that really makes me wonder, is 2021 the year when silver goes Bitcoin?
I don't know. I've learned over the last 2 decades that it's silly to try and price forecast gold and silver just because of the extreme amount of manipulation that goes on. I mean, just look at a 15-minute chart of the price of gold this week, and it looks like the heart monitor of a patient on meth. the volatility
Powerful
is
analogy.
incredible, and it's a product of the manipulation. So, I mean, do I think gold and silver are going to move a lot higher in 2021? I certainly do. And there's a lot of underlying fundamental reasons why I can make that case. However, I'm not willing to go stick my neck out and say that silver is going to go Bitcoin. Eventually it will.
Okay, so would you say it is?
Well, we saw it go Bitcoin in 2010 into 2011, right?
So would you say that you have a high degree of confidence that it is an inevitability, even if we don't know when, but that at some point, the same way people are lately stunned by the value of Bitcoin, that we will see something analogous to that in silver at some point?
I'm highly confident that at some point down the road, there's a parabolic move ahead in gold and silver. And from what price level that parabolic move begins, I don't know.
Well, fortunately, Dave, if you want, you can email Arcadia at Miles Franklin when you get your stimulus check, so you can convert that right into precious
Unfortunately,
metals.
I'm not going to get one.
Yeah. Although, Dave, you mentioned charts that look like a heart monitor of someone who's not doing so well. I got a fun one for you. Check this out. Here is Palladium. So I think this might have been Monday. So Palladium is worth about $2,240, and then around, let's call it 2260 at 8 a.m. in New York. And then the supply and demand profile wildly changed, and it was quickly worth $80 to $100 more for the next 2 hours. And then the supply and demand profile rapidly changed again, driving it lower. What do you think about that one?
Why are we talking about Palladium? I thought this was a podcast about monetary metals.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. I don't think that's in your contract anywhere. I mean, you're a market
Palladium's not
expert.
a monetary metal.
You're
now,
a
that
market
said, that doesn't
expert.
mean it's not a good investment. But what I will say is that Palladium is also just as manipulated as gold and silver, but for different reasons.
Well, I mean, I let you talk about shorting Tesla on there. I mean, it's like, where do you draw the line? Palladium, no. Wow.
I was just busting your stones. I mean, that's a good that graph shows you the type of manipulation that goes on in gold and silver almost every day. I mean, the graph, the overnight graph of gold looks exactly like that, only it shoots up, gets beat back down, not coincidentally in correlation with the AM London price fix. And yes, they do fix the price, but good over in London. And then it popped right back up. And that's one of the features that I think is most interesting right now about the price action in gold, and can say the same thing for silver, is that we're going through a period where every takedown attempt gets rebuffed and the metals bounce right back. And we saw that before that started to happen, before the big move in gold and silver was made, at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, well, that will be interesting to see how this shakes out, especially because look at some of these headlines, Dave. Trump officials discuss vaccine rollout as criticism. Did you get your vaccine yet?
Not yet. Why?
I just want to make sure you're safe. I heard there's also going to be a vaccine to protect people from the low inflation pandemic that is sweeping the nation. There you go. It looks like we're going to go $2,000 checks on that one. Although, interestingly, Dave, fortunately,
does that mean it's a total of 2,600 that people who qualify are going to get?
Let's make it 32. And although I saw last night, I mentioned on the show, there was article said there's 900 billion in stimulus, and these payments make up 164 billion. So it's like, I mean, even when you send out the free checks, make sure the banks get more. Although Dave, I know actually I'm okay with it. I'm going to stop picking on government all the time because they do get some things right. I sent you this one earlier this week, which I know was you've not been able to stop thinking about it since then, but just the benefits of your tax dollar at work. New US dietary guidelines reject recommendation to cut alcohol sugar intake. So there you go. They kept their current allowances for unchanged. Oh, actually, I read this wrong. I thought they were saying sugar and alcohol weren't good for you, but
No, they reject the recommendation to cut sugar and alcohol. I mean, it's
yeah, same guys that
recommending
gave us
it's
the
recommending that you should have a lot of sugar and alcohol, apparently.
yeah, well, even better, more helpful research. That grain pyramid I know has worked out well for a lot of people, although we'll leave that one aside. And Dave, I guess going into 2021, what are you expecting? Again, we don't know the time, but we have some of the broader themes. And here I've pulled up some of the silver mining stocks.
I'm
What do you
wondering if
expect to
that
happen?
scientific study is some kind of like, joke. Is it a April Fool's joke released in December?
I mean, it just some of these headlines I get, they just seem
Maybe
bizarre
we
at
we
times.
should be
But
buying silver futures and grain futures, right? Isn't grain used to make alcohol? Maybe we should be buying silver and grain futures.
well, I mean, I'd rather be long grain than the dollar in either
Yeah,
case.
absolutely. Well, so would the Chinese because they're part of the factor that's driving up commodity prices
Well, it's another one of those things that
by
seems like,
converting their dollars into things.
wouldn't you do that? Aren't you? I
Well,
mean,
that's
you're
what I've
doing
been
that.
doing. See, I don't just have that 10-ounce silver coin. I also have a bunch of these.
No, looks pretty snazzy.
All purchased in the last 6 months.
Well, Dave, what do you think about? We've heard a lot of talk about resets. Davos theme this year, the Great Reset. What's your forecast? Just generally speaking, any themes you see playing out in 2021? Just more money printing, or what should people be looking out for in the gold and silver markets?
I mean, I'll give you a preview of my opening commentary for the next mining stock journal, which
Sneak
I
peek.
think I'm going to have a couple new junior silver ideas in there. One of them is it's not necessarily new, but it's new for me, and I've been waiting for the price to pull back, and the price isn't cooperating, so I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet. So here's my theme. The U.S. in the U.S. the average household is starting to cave in under a mountain of debt of all flavors. Banks have clamped down on consumer lending quite a bit. This will have a direct negative effect on the economy in 2021. Soaring commodity
Uplifting, Dave.
prices Soaring commodity prices will transmit into much higher prices for necessities. This will act as a double whammy on the average household. The Fed will be compelled to print a lot more money this year under the guise of stimulating the economy. That money will be funneled into the financial system to fund massive amounts of treasury issuance. Printed money not used to fund treasury issuance will flow into things, primarily commodities and maybe stocks. The best way to take advantage of this is to buy physical gold and silver and mining stocks. Because I mean, we could go Weimar in 2021, which means the stock market's going to continue going insanely higher. But it's also mining stocks are going to go much higher as well, and they're going to be less risky because when the stock market eventually crashes, which, again, read your history about what happened to the German stock market in November 1923, and the stock market crashed, but gold didn't. And so, the levitating prices for gold and silver will hold up the mining stocks. I mean, that's not to say that there won't be a correlation effect when the stock market initially craps out, but they'll bounce back. And we saw that in 2008. We saw that in March this year. And the mining stocks actually started bouncing back before the general stock market.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot to suggest that will continue this upcoming year.
So yeah, I see a lot more money printing, a lot more government debt being piled on, a lot more fake mainstream media reporting about the economy, because they're going to be mistaking the stock market for, the economy. And the average household's going to continue, the average household's basically in financial quicksand right now, and they're going to continue sinking. And it's honestly, I mean, I know everyone's optimistic now for 2021 because the vaccine's going to save us, but quite frankly, there's underlying structural problems that have never been addressed. They could have been addressed in 2008 and 2009, but no, instead they just piled on more of the same bad policies to kick the can down the road. And now we're at that point again. And one of these days they're gonna kick at that can, and the can's gonna be so battered it won't move. So, and we may be at that point. I don't know. We won't know until we know. But for the average household, I think 2021's. I mean, I hate to be Dr. Doom and Gloom here. I'd save that for Mark Faber instead. But I think 2021 is going to be even more difficult than 2020.
Oh, there you go.
For everyone except the billionaires, who are the ones who are benefiting the most from this massive wealth transfer being transmitted through the stock market.
Well, you know what, Dave? I kind of agree, although I'm going to disagree. I plan on having a great 2021, and partly that's because I'm a subscriber to the Mining Stock Journal that you can find on investmentresearchdynamics.com, because I get what you're saying, although, I read my Dale Carnegie and other stuff that freaks you out. It was funny hearing you comment on self-development books earlier before we started recording.
What color is your parachute?
So, but anyway, I mean, I see there's what is, whether that's good or bad is perhaps arbitrary. I mean, if you know what's coming, I don't know. I think there's incredible opportunity out there. And, the fact that there's the Mining Stock Journal where I can stay posted, get a little insight. So when I have all my silver stocks up here and I'm wondering which are really the ones to own, you can get this guy, Dave Kranzler, who writes it down in the Mining Stock Journal twice a month, buddy.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
bi-weekly.
Dave, and the link for that is
there's
located
a couple
where?
Stocks on that list that I
Where's it
recommend
located?
in the Mining Stock Journal.
Where's that link? Right in the description field below. That's a nice point. Oh, that is sharp. That is razor sharp.
That's my New Year's present to you.
Wow. See, Dave, I told you 2021 is going to be a big year. So I appreciate that. And Dave, did you catch Alistair McLeod's interview last night on the show?
I have not. I was busy watching my basketball and college football bets go downhill. So, but I do plan on listening to it or watching it today.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to go anywhere because the link is coming your way right now.